Ryan Mitchell stood in the observation deck of the diplomatic shuttle, watching the Valorian palace grow larger as they approached. The crystalline structure gleamed with an otherworldly blue light that seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. The palace was unlike anything he had ever seen. Towering spires of glass-like material that could withstand weapons fire, connected by floating bridges that defied gravity itself. Behind him, Ambassador Lauren adjusted her formal robes and checked her datapad one final time. The success of this mission would determine the fate of millions of people across human space. The marriage agreement had taken 3 years of negotiations to finalize, 3 years of careful diplomacy and careful calculations. If this union failed, war would come to human territories faster than anyone could prepare for it. Ryan turned from the window and caught his reflection in the polished glass. He looked calm, composed, exactly as a diplomat should look. No one would guess that beneath his carefully tailored suit lay the scars of a dozen combat missions, or that his mind contained the tactical training of the most elite human military forces. That was exactly how he wanted it. The shuttle descended toward the landing platform, where hundreds of Valorians waited to greet the human delegation. Their forms towered above the humans, elegant and imposing with their silver-blue skin that reflected light like water. Their eyes were large and luminous, capable of seeing spectrums of light that human eyes could never perceive. They were beautiful in an alien way and utterly confident in their superiority. Ryan stepped onto the landing platform and felt all those eyes upon him. The Valorians parted like water as he walked forward. He had studied their culture extensively, learning that they valued precision, logic, and strength above all else. Emotions were viewed as weaknesses by their society. Feelings were things to be controlled and suppressed. Queen Celeste stood at the center of the Great Hall, and even among her towering people, she commanded attention. She was taller than the others, her silver-blue skin somehow more luminous, more alive. Her hair was pure white and fell to her shoulders like spun glass, and when she looked at Ryan, her luminous eyes held no warmth, only cold assessment. "I am Queen Celeste," she said, her voice precise and crystalline like the palace walls. "You are the human I must marry to prevent war." Ryan bowed deeply, showing respect according to Valorian custom. He kept his movements controlled and his expression neutral. "Your Majesty, I am Ryan Mitchell, and I am honored to stand before you." He spoke in their language, which he had studied for months until it rolled off his tongue naturally. A ripple went through the crowd. Apparently, humans were not expected to speak the Valorian language. The Queen's expression did not change, but Ryan sensed something had shifted. He had made his first move, subtle and quiet. "You are fragile," the Queen observed, studying his form. "Your kind lives only 70 to 80 years. Your bodies bruise easily. You require sleep for a third of your existence." She listed these facts as though they were cosmic truths, inevitable and absolute. "We are resilient," Ryan replied calmly. "We adapt quickly to new challenges. We form strong bonds with others. And we are willing to sacrifice everything for those we care about." He did not argue with her assessment. He merely offered a different perspective. Lord Vex, the Queen's primary advisor, stepped forward with visible disdain. He was ancient by human standards, over 200 years old, with the bearing of someone who had seen civilizations rise and fall. "This union is unprecedented and unwise, Your Majesty." His voice was sharp as broken glass. "Humanity has no place among the great powers of the galaxy." Ryan felt the weight of judgment in that statement, the centuries of superiority that the Valorians carried with them like armor. He could have argued, could have pointed out human achievements, but instead he simply stood quietly, unfazed by the dismissal. The Queen raised one elegant hand, and Lord Vex fell silent immediately. "The marriage contract has been signed. The union will proceed." Her tone left no room for discussion. "You will remain in the royal quarters." You will learn our customs. You will present yourself at the formal dinner this evening." Ryan was led through the palace by servants who moved with silent efficiency. The halls were vast and cold, decorated with art that he recognized as valuable beyond human measure. He passed portraits of ancient Valorian monarchs, each face bearing the same expression of absolute certainty. His quarters were larger than any home he had ever lived in. They contained a bedroom that could fit 30 people, a bathing chamber with technologies he did not understand, and a sitting room where servants had already prepared his human clothes for the evening. They had anticipated his needs. They had researched human comfort requirements with the same precision they applied to everything else. Ryan examined his formal dinner attire carefully. He would wear human clothing tonight, a deliberate choice to show that he did not pretend to be something he was not. He would be exactly what he was, a man from Earth, a representative of humanity, standing beside a woman from a civilization that had mastered the stars. As evening approached, Ryan made his way toward the great dining hall. Servants guided him through corridors lit by bioluminescent panels. He passed the great library where Valorian scholars had accumulated knowledge for thousands of years. He passed chambers of technology that made his own world's science look primitive in comparison. But he was not afraid, and he was not intimidated. He had seen worse, done harder things than this. He had volunteered for this mission knowing that it might cost him his life. He had come here because somebody had to bridge the gap between their species, and he believed he could do it. The great dining hall was already filled with Valorian nobility when he arrived. The queen sat at the head of a long crystalline table, her expression unreadable. Ryan took his assigned seat at her right side, the position of honor, the position that made his status as her husband unmistakable to everyone present. "You speak our language," the queen said as the first course was served, a strange luminescent substance that smelled of salt and minerals. "I have studied for many months, Your Majesty," Ryan replied. "I believed it would be disrespectful to come to your world and not make the effort to communicate properly." He saw the faintest flicker of something in her eyes, something that might have been approval. It was small, barely noticeable, but it was there. Ryan ate the strange food without hesitation, showed no sign of discomfort, and continued speaking to the queen in her own language. He did not pretend to understand things he did not understand. He asked questions with genuine curiosity. By the end of the evening, something had shifted in the great hall. The Valorians were no longer quite as certain in their judgment. The human was strange, yes, but he was not as contemptible as they had expected. He was quiet where they expected him to be loud. He was respectful where they expected him to be arrogant. He was in every way an enigma, and that enigma would change everything. 3 weeks had passed since Ryan's arrival at the palace, 3 weeks of formal dinners and careful conversations. The queen had begun to acknowledge his presence with something that might have been respect. She asked him questions about human history, about Earth's harsh environment, about why his species had survived when so many others had perished. Ryan answered truthfully, speaking about humanity's greatest strength, the ability to face impossible odds and refuse to surrender. He told her about wars fought on barren continents, about diseases that had nearly destroyed entire civilizations, about how humans had learned to cooperate rather than dominate. The queen listened without comment, but Ryan noticed she listened with genuine attention. Then, one morning, Commander Derek arrived at the royal quarters with official-looking armor and expression that could have frozen starlight. He was the head of the Valorian Royal Guard, ancient and scarred and absolutely convinced that humans were beneath consideration. "The Queen has requested you undergo a physical evaluation," Derek announced, his tone suggesting that this was a formality to confirm what everyone already knew. Ryan would fail this test. Humans always did. Ryan changed into the athletic clothing that had been provided, and followed Derek to the training grounds beneath the palace. The facility was vast and impressive, containing equipment designed for a species that weighed twice as much as humans and could lift 10 times as much. "You will demonstrate your physical capabilities," Derek said flatly. "Show me what a human can do." Ryan warmed up carefully, stretching muscles and preparing his body for what was to come. Derek watched with an expression of obvious contempt. When Ryan was ready, he approached the first set of equipment, weights designed for Valorian soldiers. The heaviest dumbbell weighed 400 pounds. Derek had left it there as a joke, expecting Ryan to fail at lifting it. Instead, Ryan picked it up with one hand and performed a series of perfect curls. Then he shifted to the other hand and repeated the exercise. Derek's expression did not change, but something flickered in his luminous eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or the beginning of doubt. "Meaningless," Derek said dismissively. "You are still fragile compared to our weakest soldiers." Ryan did not argue. Instead, he said, "May I suggest a different test, Commander? Physical strength is only one measure of capability." Derek gestured impatiently, and Ryan moved to the combat training area. There were dummy targets designed to mimic Valorian opponents, tall and strong and programmed with fighting patterns. Ryan began to move through the training sequence, his form perfect, his movements efficient. He was faster than the dummies. His mind processed patterns and predicted movements before they happened. He used leverage and technique rather than brute strength, flipping and redirecting attacks that should have struck him. Where he lacked strength, he compensated with speed and precision. When he finished the sequence, not a single dummy had landed a clean strike. Ryan had neutralized every threat. Derek stepped forward suddenly, his massive frame casting a shadow over the human. "Now fight me," he demanded. "Show me if this was luck or skill." They faced each other, and Derek attacked with the confidence of someone who outweighed his opponent by hundreds of pounds. Ryan moved like water, redirecting the force rather than meeting it head-on. He ducked beneath a strike that would have torn his head clean off his shoulders. He used Derek's own momentum against him. The battle lasted 5 minutes, and at the end, Ryan was standing calmly while Derek was on his knees, breathing hard. The human had not defeated him. That would have been impossible. But Ryan had proven that he could survive, could adapt, could think faster than raw power could act. "Enough," Derek said, and there was something new in his voice. Respect, hard-earned and grudging but genuine. When Ryan returned to the royal quarters, he found Queen Celeste waiting for him. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes held questions. "Commander Derek reports that you are not what you appeared to be," she said, and it was not an accusation but an observation. Ryan sat across from her, his body aching but his mind clear. "I was a soldier before I became a diplomat, Your Majesty. I have served in conflicts across human space. I volunteered for this mission because I believed it could prevent a war that would destroy millions of lives." The Queen absorbed this information with the same precision she applied to everything. "You concealed this from me." "I did not lie," Ryan replied. "I simply did not reveal everything about myself until the situation warranted it. Where I come from, it is sometimes necessary to observe before we are fully observed, to understand before we are fully understood." The Queen rose from her chair and walked to the window overlooking the palace gardens. "My people view humans as inferior," she said. "We have longer lifespans, greater strength, superior technology. Our logic is unassailable. Our conclusions are irrefutable. And yet here I stand," Ryan said quietly, "not defeated by your strength, not broken by your expectations. Not because I am superior to your people, but because I am different. Perhaps difference can be valuable. Perhaps it can strengthen an alliance rather than weaken it." The Queen turned to face him, and for a moment her expression softened. You are not what you appeared to be, Ryan Mitchell. Neither are you, Your Majesty, he replied. You are not the cold, unfeeling ruler your advisors suggested. You listen. You consider. You asked about my world with genuine curiosity. A purely logical being would not do such things. That evening, as Ryan lay in his quarters, alarms suddenly screamed through the palace. Red light flooded the corridors, and automated systems locked down every section. Ryan ran toward the command center, following guards who ignored his presence, too focused on the emergency. When he arrived, he saw what had caused the alarm. Sensors had detected an approaching fleet. Ships moving at high speed toward the Valorian home world. The configuration was Valorian, but the approach vectors were aggressive. Who are they? Ryan asked Dr. Nicole, the palace physician who had become something of an ally during his time there. The rogue faction from the outer territories, she whispered. The ones who opposed the treaty with humanity. They have finally come. Lord Vex stood at the center of the command chamber, his expression triumphant. He was already speaking rapidly to the Queen, recommending immediate military mobilization and the dissolution of the human alliance. The marriage was a weakness now. The human was a liability. Ryan caught the Queen's eye across the chamber. And in that moment, he realized the real battle was only beginning. The tests he had passed were meaningless. The true challenge was about to arrive on their doorstep with weapons armed and demands that could tear their world apart. The command center erupted into controlled chaos as military officers scrambled to analyze the incoming fleet. Tactical displays showed dozens of Valorian warships approaching on an intercept course with the palace. The Queen remained motionless at her throne, processing information with the calm of someone who had seen centuries pass like moments. Your Majesty, we must respond immediately, Lord Vex urged, moving closer to her seat. The rogue faction has always been a threat, and now they believe the human alliance has weakened us. We must show strength. We must destroy them before they strike. Ryan stepped forward, drawing attention from everyone in the chamber. With permission, Your Majesty, I would like to examine the sensor data. Human military strategy might offer useful perspectives. Lord Vex actually laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Your perspective is irrelevant, human. We have superior numbers, superior technology, superior everything. Humans know nothing of galactic warfare. But the Queen raised her hand. Show me what you see, Ryan. Ryan moved to the tactical display, studying the approaching fleet with the trained eye of someone who had spent years analyzing combat patterns. Something about the formation seemed off, almost arranged to look threatening rather than arranged to be effective. The positioning was aggressive, but tactically unsound for an actual assault. This does not look like an attack formation, Ryan said slowly. This looks like a show of force. If they meant to attack, they would have changed their approach vectors 2 hours ago. They would be concealing their numbers, not broadcasting them. This is posturing, not invasion. General Brandon, the military commander, studied the data more carefully. The human is correct. Their formation is inefficient for actual combat. They are demonstrating power but not committing to assault. Lord Vex's expression darkened. Nevertheless, Your Majesty, such blatant defiance cannot go unanswered. We must respond with overwhelming force. We must crush this rebellion immediately and show our strength to all the galaxy. No, the Queen said firmly. We will attempt communication first. Strength without wisdom is merely destruction. That night, Ryan lay in his quarters, unable to sleep. Something about the situation felt wrong in ways that extended beyond the immediate military threat. He rose and accessed the palace communication systems, using the limited access granted to him as the Queen's consort. He examined records of communications between high-ranking Valorian officials and the approaching fleet. What he found chilled him. Lord Vex had been communicating with the rogue faction for months, encouraging them to approach, to make a show of force that would undermine confidence in the Queen. The conspiracy was clear. Lord Vex wanted the incoming threat to create panic. He wanted the Valorians to lose faith in their Queen's leadership. In the chaos of a crisis, he could easily remove her from power and seize control. The human alliance would be abandoned, and the throne would be his. Ryan immediately brought the evidence to General Brandon, who studied the encrypted communications with growing anger. Lord Vex is the oldest advisor of the throne, Brandon said quietly. He has served 3 queens before this one. No one will believe such betrayal without absolute proof. Then we need to make the proof absolutely undeniable, Ryan replied. We need to catch him in the act of communicating with the rogue faction directly. They planned carefully, setting up surveillance in Lord Vex's private chamber. Within hours, he arrived and activated a secure communication channel. His conversation was damning. He promised the rogue faction that the Queen would be removed, that the human alliance would be dissolved, that the reward for their loyalty would be vast territories and power. Armed with this evidence, Ryan brought it directly to the Queen in her private chamber. She listened without interruption, her expression growing colder and more distant with each revelation. He has served my family for 200 years, the Queen said finally. He raised me after my mother's death. I trusted him above all others. Trust can be betrayed by those closest to us, Ryan said gently. It is a weakness in both our species. What do you counsel? The Queen asked. In your military experience, what is the correct response to treason? Ryan chose his words carefully. Execution is the logical choice, the choice your people would expect. But consider the alternative. Exile removes a threat without creating a martyr. It also preserves your honor and demonstrates the wisdom you spoke about last night. The Queen was silent for a long moment. You counsel mercy in the face of betrayal. I counsel strategy that serves your long-term goals, Ryan replied. Killing him solves the immediate problem. Exiling him solves the problem permanently and demonstrates that you are capable of mercy and wisdom. That is far more powerful than mere strength. 2 days later, the Queen convened an emergency session of the Royal Council. She presented the evidence of Lord Vex's conspiracy with perfect clarity, each communication displayed, each betrayal catalogued. The ancient advisor tried to defend himself, but his words fell into silence. You are hereby exiled from Valorian space, the Queen declared. You will be transported to the outer territories, stripped of your titles and your wealth. You will have nothing. You will be nothing. And you will spend the remainder of your extended life knowing that your own schemes brought about your ruin. Lord Vex's face transformed with rage as security forces led him from the chamber. You choose to humiliate yourself with mercy. The human has corrupted you. You will regret this weakness. But no one believed him anymore. The evidence was irrefutable. That evening, as the rogue faction received word that their conspiracy had failed, their military posture changed completely. Commander Thorn, the leader of the outer faction, contacted the Queen directly. He was appalled by Lord Vex's betrayal of honor. The Valorian Code valued loyalty above all else. We were promised an honorable conflict. Instead, we were offered conspiracy and deception, Thorn said, his voice tight with controlled anger. We withdraw our forces. The Humans' Council served you well, Queen Celeste. Perhaps there is wisdom in unexpected places. As the hostile fleet turned away and headed back toward the outer territories, the palace erupted in celebration. The Queen was safe, the conspiracy was destroyed, and the alliance with humanity had proven its value. But Ryan knew this was merely the beginning. There were still forces in the galaxy watching their every move. Still threats lurking in the darkness. And somewhere, in the vast reaches of space, others were taking note of what had happened here, They were noting how a human had proven valuable. They were noting how logic alone was not sufficient to rule an empire. And they were preparing their own responses to this new development in galactic affairs. The Queen summoned Ryan to her private chamber 3 days after Lord Vex's exile. She was standing at the window overlooking the palace gardens, her silver-blue skin catching the light of the distant star. "The conspiracy is contained but not resolved," she said without preamble. "Commander Thorn and his faction remain suspicious. They agreed to withdraw, but they could turn against us at any moment if they decide we are too weak to resist. We need to transform them from potential enemies into genuine allies." "You want me to negotiate with them," Ryan said, understanding her implication. "I want you to offer them what they actually want," the Queen replied. "Not territorial gains, not power. Those are merely symbols. Find what drives them, what truly motivates their loyalty. Use your human understanding of motivation, your unique perspective." Ryan departed for the outer territories with General Brandon and a small escort. Their ship crossed neutral space toward the fleet under flag of peace. Commander Thorn received them in his battle cruiser, a massive structure of Valorian engineering with weapons enough to destroy a planet. Thorn was ancient and scarred, a warrior of the old tradition who had never doubted Valorian superiority until he discovered that the Queen herself had chosen mercy over vengeance. He regarded Ryan with open skepticism. "Explain your purpose, human," Thorn commanded. "Why should I trust you? You are the reason my people were promised revolution and delivered conspiracy." Ryan sat across from the commander, his posture relaxed and respectful. "Because I am going to tell you the truth. The Queen did not send me to make false promises or offer empty titles. She sent me because she respected your code of honor and believed you were worth dealing with honestly." He proceeded to tell Thorn the complete story of Lord Vex's deception, how the ancient advisor had manipulated both the outer faction and the Queen, how his goals had nothing to do with Valorian expansion and everything to do with personal power. He showed Thorn the communications records that proved the conspiracy. "He used us as pawns," Thorn said quietly, his eyes reflecting the weight of centuries of warfare. "He promised us honor and delivered humiliation." "The Queen chose exile instead of execution," Ryan said. "She followed the code of honor that you follow. She treated your people with respect, even when they approached under hostile banners." Thorn stood and walked to the observation window, looking out at his fleet. "Valorians value strength. We value logic. We value honor above all else. What does your Queen offer?" "Partnership," Ryan replied. "Not domination, not false promises, not manipulation. The Valorian Empire and the outer factions working together as equals, each contributing what they do best. The Queen recognizes that diverse perspectives make for better governance. She wants your counsel on military matters. She wants your honesty on policy decisions." "She is unique," Thorn observed. "A Valorian leader who values input from those outside her immediate circle. That is nearly unheard of in our culture." "She is learning that strength is not the same as wisdom," Ryan said, "and that different species, different perspectives can see things that homogeneous leadership cannot." Over the following days, Ryan engaged in extensive discussions with Thorn. He attended their military councils, asked questions about their concerns, listened to their frustrations with the central government. He never pretended to have all the answers. Instead, he admitted his ignorance and learned from them. Thorn watched this unusual human with growing fascination. Here was a being from a species that lived barely 80 years, yet he engaged with problems and policies as though he had the perspective of centuries. His questions were simple but profound. His willingness to admit uncertainty was refreshing in a galaxy where most leaders projected absolute confidence. "I will tell you something, human," Thorn said on the 5th day of negotiation. I came here expecting to conquer this palace and remove a weak queen from power. Instead, I find that the queen has gained strength from her alliance with your kind. If this is what humanity brings to galactic affairs, perhaps we have misjudged your species. We are not superior to the Valorians, Ryan replied. We simply see problems differently. Sometimes a different perspective is more valuable than superior technology. They reached a formal agreement. The outer factions would pledge loyalty to the Queen and integrate their military forces with the central government. In exchange, they would have representation in the Royal Council. Their voices would be heard in decisions affecting the entire empire. As Ryan prepared to return to the palace, Thorn approached him privately. "There is something you should know," the ancient warrior said. "While we were discussing the conspiracy with Lord Vex, we received communications from other sources in the galaxy. Races and civilizations that have been watching the Valorian Empire for decades. They are noting that your queen accepted counsel from a human. They are noting that your species can match our warriors in tactical brilliance. Some view this as opportunity. Others view it as threat." Ryan understood immediately. The mere fact of human success had altered the balance of power in galactic politics. Every civilization would be reassessing humanity's potential. "Thank you for the warning," Ryan said. "It is valuable information." "One more thing," Thorn added. "The Queen has never allowed anyone to challenge her authority or her decisions. That she values your counsel and acts upon it represents a fundamental shift in her governance. If your relationship deepens, it could reshape the entire Valorian culture. Be aware of what you are accomplishing here." The journey back to the palace was tense with anticipation. General Brandon reviewed the agreement documents repeatedly, noting how Ryan had achieved in days what might have taken years of traditional negotiation. The human had given the outer factions hope and respect rather than threats and promises. When Ryan arrived at the palace, the Queen was waiting in the Great Hall. The entire court had assembled to witness the formal signing of the new alliance. As Ryan presented the agreement, the gathered Valorians erupted in reaction. Some approving, some shocked, some clearly disapproving. But the Queen simply extended her hand toward Ryan, acknowledging him before the entire court. It was a gesture of profound significance in Valorian culture. Public recognition of an equal, a partner, someone worthy of standing beside the throne. "The human achieved what our greatest diplomats could not," she announced. He understood that true alliance is not built on submission or fear. It is built on mutual respect and recognition of value. This is the wisdom that our partnership brings. That night, the Queen summoned Ryan to her private chamber once more. But this time, her expression was different. The cold distance had melted like ice beneath a warming sun. "You have changed my understanding of strength," she said quietly. "You have shown me that wisdom and strategy matter more than power. And you have somehow made me feel something I thought my kind was incapable of feeling." Ryan understood what she was revealing, and he approached her slowly. When their hands touched, it was not a political gesture. It was genuine connection between two beings from different worlds, different species, different everything. But their moment of peace was shattered by alarms screaming through the palace once again. This time, the threat was different. This time, the danger came from an entirely unexpected direction. The alarms that screamed through the palace were different from the previous ones. These were internal security warnings, indicating a breach within the palace itself. General Brandon appeared within moments, his expression grim. "We have an intruder in the lower levels," he reported. "Someone with detailed knowledge of palace layout and security systems. They have been moving toward the throne room." Ryan's military instincts activated immediately. "It is not random. Someone planned this. They knew we would be together in this chamber." The Queen rose from her seat, her moment of vulnerability replaced by absolute authority. "Show me the security footage." The images that appeared on the display were shocking. Lord Vex moving through the palace with an escort of armed mercenaries. He had not been transported to the outer territories, as everyone believed. Somehow, he had escaped or been rescued. He planned this entire escape from the moment of exile, Ryan said, analyzing the sequence of events. He would have had contacts among the palace staff, allies willing to help him. He probably faked his transport and created false documentation of his departure. The throne room doors suddenly shook under violent impact. Lord Vex had found his target. He was attempting to breach the Queen's private chamber. "Seal the inner doors," the Queen commanded. "Activate the defense systems." Barriers of pure energy descended, blocking the entrances. But Ryan could hear Lord Vex's voice through the communication speakers. "You have humiliated me before the entire empire. You chose mercy when I deserved none. You have destroyed the Valorian way by accepting counsel from an inferior species. I will not allow this weakness to continue." Then the older Valorian did something unprecedented. He broadcast a message to the entire palace and every Valorian citizen linked to the communication network. In his message, he revealed that the Queen had been corrupted by the human, that she was making decisions based on emotion rather than logic, that she was a threat to Valorian civilization itself. "Do you see now?" Lord Vex's voice filled the throne room. "This human has made you vulnerable. He has filled you with primitive emotions. Let me restore logic to the throne." The Queen stood absolutely still, absorbing the public nature of his accusation. If she responded with force, she would appear to validate his claims that she was emotional and unstable. If she failed to respond, it could appear that she accepted his judgment. Ryan stepped forward. "Your Majesty, I have an idea, but it requires that you trust me completely." "I do trust you," the Queen said simply. Ryan requested immediate access to all broadcast channels. The Queen granted it without hesitation. Within moments, Ryan's face appeared on every screen throughout the Valorian Empire. "I am Ryan Mitchell," he said, his voice steady and clear. "I am human, and I came to this palace expecting to live briefly and die forgotten. Instead, I have learned that your Queen possesses something that no amount of technological advancement can create: true wisdom." He continued speaking, his words simple but powerful. He explained how the Queen had been presented with a choice between vengeance and mercy. How the logical choice was vengeance, but the wise choice was mercy. He detailed how that single decision of mercy had transformed an enemy into an ally, had prevented war, had strengthened the empire. "You can judge for yourselves," Ryan said. "Look at the evidence. The outer territories have pledged loyalty through honor, not through fear or manipulation. The Queen has achieved what your previous leaders could not achieve through centuries of warfare and intimidation." Then Ryan turned to Lord Vex directly. "You accuse the Queen of being emotional and weak. But I ask you, who truly acted from emotion in this moment? Was it the Queen, who made logical decisions that strengthened her position? Or was it you, driven by rage and humiliation, risking everything on an attempt at revenge?" The impact was immediate. Valorians prided themselves on logic. Calling Lord Vex's actions emotional, driven by rage rather than reason, was devastating to his position. The broadcast had forced him to be evaluated by the same standards he had tried to use against the Queen. General Brandon's forces breached the barriers moments later. They arrested Lord Vex and his mercenary associates. The invasion that had threatened the Queen collapsed into futility. But then something unexpected happened. As Lord Vex was led away in restraints, he looked directly at the Queen. "You have won this day," he said. "But the galaxy will consume you both. There are forces far greater than Valorian politics watching what you are building." Your humans' innovations have made you visible to predators that were previously content to ignore us." The threat hung in the air, but the Queen simply gazed at him with something approaching pity. "Then we will face those challenges together," she replied. "With wisdom, with strategy, with the combined strength of all our peoples." In the days that followed, the Valorian Empire was forced to confront uncomfortable truths. The Queen had not been weak. She had been wise. The human had not corrupted her. He had taught her that logic and emotion were not opposites but partners in true decision-making. The royal court gathered for an unprecedented ceremony, the formal coronation of Ryan as Prince Consort of the Valorian Empire. It was not a symbolic position. It carried genuine authority and responsibility. The human would sit in council alongside the Queen, offering perspectives that only his unique background could provide. Princess Amber, the Queen's younger sister, approached Ryan during the celebration. "Everyone thought she was making a terrible mistake when she agreed to marry you," the young Valorian said. "But you have made her stronger. You have changed her way of seeing the universe." "She was always strong," Ryan replied. "I simply helped her recognize that her strength could take many forms." As evening descended on the palace, Ryan stood with the Queen on the observation platform overlooking the garden. Below them, Valorians and humans worked together on renovation projects, preparing the palace for a new era of genuine partnership. "Do you regret your decision to come here?" the Queen asked. "Do you regret leaving your home for someone who initially viewed you as inferior?" "I came here expecting to sacrifice myself," Ryan replied. "I was prepared to fail, to live briefly and die without making any real difference. Instead, I have found something I did not know I was searching for, a purpose that transcends survival, the chance to help build something genuinely new." The Queen took his hand. It was a gesture of profound intimacy among her people. "The conspiracy with Lord Vex is not truly ended," she said quietly. "There are others in the Valorian hierarchy who resent the changes you have brought. And beyond our borders, other civilizations are watching our alliance with increasing concern. Some will see opportunity. Others will see threat. Then, we will face those challenges as we have faced everything else," Ryan said. "Together, with wisdom and strategy and the recognition that our differences are our greatest strength." Far above the palace, in the cold darkness of space, sensor platforms tracked the growing alliance between human and Valorian. Across the galaxy, civilizations received reports of what was happening. Some began moving to establish trade with the Valorian Empire. Others began preparing their defenses. And a few, the truly ancient and powerful ones, simply watched and waited to see what this unexpected partnership would ultimately create. Ryan Mitchell, who had come to an alien world as a sacrifice pawn, had somehow become a king. And the consequences of his presence would reshape galactic civilization for generations to come. The story of the Queen's human groom had only begun, and the universe would never be quite the same again.